We all fear Direclaw. You can try to run from it, try to fight it, but we fear it all the same. It haunts our nightmares. We wake, unable to move, plagued by visions of it, like some kind of sleep paralysis and poison demon. Get it? Because, like, it's the Direclaw effect, like sleep paralysis and poison are the Direclaw effect, and then, like, sleep paralysis demon? You get it. Anyway. But what if I told you there was another move like it introduced in Pokémon Legends Arceus? A strong physical attack with 3 powerful secondary effects. And what if I then told you that this move could achieve all 3 secondary effects at once? The mere sound of it is truly frightening. Or at least it would be if this move wasn't stuck on Hisui and Decidueye. In this video we'll be talking about some of the most broken moves in the game that are kept in check only because no good Pokémon get them. The first of these moves, as you may have guessed, is Triple Arrows, the signature move of Hisui and Decidueye. Triple Arrows is a 90 base power physical fighting type move with 100% accuracy, with an increased critical hit rate, a 50% chance to lower the target's defense, and a 30% chance to flinch. Unlike Direclaw, these effects are all entirely independent of each other, meaning that you could potentially get all 3 of them on the same turn. If Decidueye hits an opponent before they've attacked, there's a 15% chance to get both a defense drop and a flinch, with the heightened crit rate on top of that. That's the first problem though. To make full use of the brokenness of this move, Decidueye has to move before the target to get the flinch chance. This is not very easy with a base speed stat of 60. The vast majority of Pokemon will be outspeeding Decidueye, but it's not slow enough to be effective in Trick Room. Apart from in very specific conditions, such as an unmatched Tailwind on Decidueye's side, it isn't able to really utilise this flinch chance. Outside of its speed, Decidueye's stats are actually not bad, with reasonable bulk and a decent 112 base attack stat. The problem is that on such a slow Pokemon with such poor defensive typing, these kinds of mediocre stats aren't good enough to make it a threat. A move like Triple Arrows would be a lot scarier on a much faster Pokemon, either in an offensive role, or as the sole attack on a fast support Pokemon. Next up, we have the signature move of one of Gen 9's fan favourite Pokemon, Gigaton. Gigaton Hammer is a crazy strong steel type attack, with 160 base power and 100 accuracy. Most steel types would run Iron Head as their steel type move, and this does double the damage of Iron Head, with the one drawback being that you can't use it twice in a row. This means that if your opponent correctly uses Protect, or switches in a Pokemon that resists the attack, you now can't use Gigaton Hammer again on the following turn. However, unlike similarly powerful attacks, such as Hyper Beam, you're not forced to do nothing. You're still able to use any of your other moves, so this drawback is well worth it as a trade-off for the power of this move. However, this move is balanced out by Tinkaton's abysmal 75 base attack. With such a low attack stat, even Gigaton Hammer isn't threatening to one-shot anything on a neutral hit, and the rest of its moves are equivalent to being slapped with a pool noodle. Despite its great typing and extensive support move pool, Tinkaton is severely held back by its awful stats, with below average bulk and mediocre speed that puts it slightly below that crucial base 100 tier. Gigaton Hammer would be absolutely broken on a Pokemon like Metagross with a solid attack stat, but fortunately Game Freak is sensible enough to not give such a powerful move to such a powerful Pokemon. Unless you pay for the DLC, then you've earned it. This next move is the only move in this video that isn't a signature move. There are multiple Pokemon that can use it, it's just that all of them are bad. Shed Tail is a move that causes the user to lose half of its maximum HP in order to put up a substitute, before switching out and giving the substitute to the Pokemon that comes in. This substitute will have 1/4 of the Shed Tail user's maximum HP. This effect is incredibly strong if used well, as it can give a free switch and protection to a powerful Pokemon such as a setup sweeper or something frail with huge immediate damage that would otherwise struggle to get onto the field or survive more than a turn. In fact, Shed Tail is such a good move that it was banned in Smogon's highest competitive singles tier, despite not being used much in the official VGC format. That said, it did see some fringe use in Regulation C alongside Dragonite, whose substitute would be quite hard to break thanks to its multi-scale ability, allowing it to set up with Dragon Dance and potentially end games. The problem is that none of the Pokemon that get Shed Tail have the attributes that would make them good users of the move. The perfect Shed Tail user would be slow and very bulky, allowing it to sponge hits before passing a high HP substitute to its partner after the opponents have moved. This would allow the recipient of Shed Tail to start the next turn with an undamaged substitute up without the risk of being hit on the turn it enters the field. Cyclizar and Sceptile are both very fast and very squishy, which is the opposite of what we want. This means that not only do the substitutes they pass not have much HP, but the opponent also has the opportunity to break the substitute as soon as the recipient hits the field, and potentially double into that slot for a KO before the new Pokemon has a chance to realise what's happened. Cyclizar's Regenerator ability heals 1/3 of its health when it switches out of battle, which feels like it would be great for allowing multiple uses of Shed Tail in a single game. However, VGC is a fast enough format that it's very difficult to get a Shed Tail off and then safely get Cyclizar back on the field while also still having a Pokemon in the back to pass a substitute to, so multiple Shed Tails in a game is almost impossible. Orthworm is the closest we have to the ideal Shed Tail user, and is the only one of the three that has seen any use. It's relatively slow and has impressive physical bulk, but it's let down by its frankly awful special bulk, with 70 base HP and an even worse 55 base special defense, meaning that any special attack is threatening to do huge damage. Even if it may not be KO'd by special attacks with enough investment, it's rarely going to have the 50% of its health that it needs to use Shed Tail. On top of these shortcomings specific to using Shed Tail, none of these three Pokemon really have anything else useful going on. If an otherwise strong Pokemon got Shed Tail, you could maybe slap it on as a secondary support option that you use if the right niche situation arises. As it stands though, the Pokemon that get Shed Tail are not otherwise strong. Cyclizar and Sceptile are both too frail to be fast supports and lack the cannon part of the Glass Cannon archetype, and Orthworm without Shed Tail is just a Steelix you ordered from Wish. Now, going back to signature moves, we have two very similar moves on two very different Pokemon. We've played with Urshifu enough to know how powerful being able to ignore Protect is. It fundamentally warps how you position and play defensively. When Urshifu is on the field, you can no longer Protect to block a Fake Out or scout what move a Choice Scarf user locks into. You can't keep a Pokemon safe while you switch its partner out. You can't stall a turn of Tailwind or Trick Room. It is so broken. Urshifu isn't the only Pokemon that can hit through Protect though. We've seen moves that can break Protect before, like Feint and Phantom Force, which usually come with a drawback, such as having very low power or requiring 2 turns to use. This changed in Scarlet and Violet, which introduced 2 new moves that can ignore Protect with no drawback: Hyper Drill and Mighty Cleave, the signature moves of Dunsparce and Iron Boulder respectively. Hyper Drill is a 100 base power normal type attack with 100 accuracy that hits through Protect and Detect. On a slow and bulky normal type like Dunsparce that doesn't want to take recoil from Double Edge, this would probably still be its best stab move even if it didn't hit through Protect, but that effect makes it the clear choice. At the end of the day though, this is still a normal type move, which is one of the least useful offensive types in the game. It's resisted by Steel and Rock, can't hit ghost types at all, again unless you pay for the DLC, and doesn't hit any types for super effective damage. That's not to say that normal types can't ever be good offensively. We've seen examples in the past such as Mega Kangaskhan, or in this generation we have Mousehold and both Ursaluna forms relying on normal type attacks for most of their damage. The key difference is that these Pokemon hit so hard with their normal type attacks that they don't need to hit opponents super effectively to threaten one-hit KOs. Blood Moon and Full Power Facade both have 140 base power and are backed by powerful attacking stats and multipliers such as Life Orb or Guts boosts, and when factoring in the boost from Mousehold's Technician ability, Population Bomb comes out at a huge 300 base power if all 10 hits connect. In these cases, Normal's excellent neutral coverage is arguably more powerful than a type that can hit some types super effectively, but has more types that resist it. Poor Dunsparce doesn't have this luxury though, with a meager 100 base attack and no powerful ability to boost its damage. It has access to a good selection of physical coverage moves, including ground and dark type moves to cover for the types that Normal doesn't hit neutrally. However, these moves are not very strong and so aren't dealing much damage off of Dunsparce's attack even on a super effective hit. Dunsparce also has a few good support options, most notably its speed control in Glare and Tailwind, but its low speed makes these ineffective since your opponent can just KO it before it's able to use them. Besides, with a 55 base speed stat, it's not going to be outspeeding much under Tailwind anyway. One of the factors that makes Urshifu so scary is that it can outspeed so much of the metagame, leading to situations where an opponent is pinned since they can't protect, but they also can't outspeed and KO. With Dunsparce, sure you can't protect against it, but you don't really need to if you can just hit it before it hits you. Give Hyper Drill to Ursaluna and it's game over, but Dunsparce, not so much. This is no issue for our other Protect Ignorer, Iron Boulder, and its signature move Mighty Cleave. Mighty Cleave is slightly weaker than Hyper Drill with 95 base power, but more than makes up for it with its Rock typing, one of the best offensive types in the game. Physical Rock type moves like Rock Slide and Stone Edge are famously inaccurate, so having access to a powerful Rock move that can't miss is a huge plus. On top of that, Iron Boulder has a higher attack stat than the Dunsparce at base 120, which is good but not amazing, and crucially an impressive speed stat of 124. With Mighty Cleave and good stats, you'd think Iron Boulder would see some more use, but there are a few things holding it back. Firstly is its typing. Though Rock is a good offensive type, it's not very good defensively. When combined with the Psychic type, Iron Boulder has a massive 7 weaknesses, with Bug being the only one of those that isn't a very common offensive type. while its 5 resistances are to largely less relevant types, making this one of the worst defensive type combinations in the game. Psychic is also not a very potent offensive type, especially on the physical side, with Iron Boulder's best option for a psychic move being the notoriously unreliable Zen Headbutt. Its access to fighting moves in Sacred Sword and close combat to hit Dark and Steel types goes some way to making up for this, but arguably not quite enough. The other part of why Iron Boulder doesn't work is because of the Pokemon surrounding it. To quote Kamala Harris,
"You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you."
That is to say, in isolation and without context, Iron Boulder is a good Pokemon with a lot of very strong traits. If you let Iron Boulder loose in Regulation H, where Legendary and Paradox Pokemon weren't allowed, then 124 base speed, 120 attack, and a rock move you can't protect against would have made it incredibly powerful, especially with its positive matchment to Sneasler. However, because it's a Paradox Pokemon, Iron Boulder will only exist in metagames with other Paradox Pokemon, and often Legendary Pokemon too. These metagames are full of faster and stronger options, as well as higher bulk in general. When you look at the most common Pokemon in these formats, Iron Boulder matches up badly into almost all of them. Fluttermane, both Urshifu forms, Rillaboom, Incineroar, Chien-Pao, Chi-Yu, Ogerpon, I could go on and on about the Pokemon that can one-hit KO Iron Boulder with a super effective move. Despite access to one of the best moves in the game, its stats that aren't quite enough and its mountain of bad matchups mean that Iron Boulder simply doesn't have what it takes to compete in the formats it's legal in. And that's some examples of amazing moves on bad Pokemon. Let me know in the comments if you agree with these picks or if there are any that you think I missed. As always, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out my other videos for more content like this. To keep up with my live content, go follow me on Twitch. The link to that is in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.